Hey guys, what's going on? We got the Enhancement Shaman alpha developer notes here. Unfortunately, I don't have any gameplay to show as I did not get into the alpha test, but I do want to go over all the talents and stuff. Now, I have already done that, all the changes and stuff. I've already gone over it myself. And to give a quick overview, I do see these as a positive change with some negative changes as well. But I would say overall, I think it's going in a better direction than what we've had in the past. So to start off with, let's get into this. So first off, we got hero talents. We got our Stormbringer. So a new talent is Natural Gift. Nature damage increased by 2%. And new talent Descending Skies. Ascendance upgrades your next lightning bolt to Tempest. So this is basically just adding in our most recent tier set into the talent tree. And then we go on to enhancement specific. We have a new talent called Storm Swell. When Fury weapon damage increased by 10%. When Crash Lightning hits a single enemy, it activates Wind Fury weapon. I really do like this. It incorporates the Crash Lightning talent plus a little bit of Wind Fury damage. It's emphasizing that it wants to make imbuements more impactful. So I do kind of like this. Then we got Tempest has been updated. Each Maelstrom's weapon spent has a 2% chance to upgrade your next Lightning Bolt to a Tempest. Now that means we have a 20% chance to get a Tempest every time we spend Maelstrom weapon. I'm going to be honest, I'm not a big fan of this change. I do prefer the other version of it where we currently have, where it's like every 40 you are guaranteed a Tempest. I truly do believe that is a better version, but they clearly don't want that anymore. As to why, I'm not really sure. But yeah, I think this is one of the negative changes. Now, overall, I think we will get more Tempest, but I don't like the lottery style of this because you could theoretically go without any Tempest per fight. But that is a small chance. And then we have Awakening Storms has been changed. So this used to be every time you Storm Strike, Lightning Bolt, or whatever, you had a small chance to do a bit of extra nature damage. And every 4 times that would happen, that would do Tempest. That would give you a Tempest. Now it's just Storm Strike has a small chance to upgrade your next Lightning Bolt to Tempest. Again, I'm not a big fan of this change. I did like the previous version. It gave you a bit more of a realization of when you're gonna get the Tempest rather than, just randomly proccing. Now, again, with this version, we could potentially have even more Tempests than before, but at the same time, we could theoretically go without. I I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of this, but it is what it is. I did like the previous version better. So now we go into Rolling Thunder. If you remember this one, it was whenever you Tempest, you summon a Feral Spirit, or a Nature Feral Spirit to be specific. Now they want Doom Winds to summon it. So I like this idea a lot. It puts more effect into our cooldown Doom Winds, which they did later on as well. And it honestly makes Doom Winds more impactful as well as our cooldown without relying on a random burst of Tempest to give us 10 nature dogs, and then we're just going insane. I think this is a really, really decent change. So on to the next one, we got Arc Discharge. If you remember this, it was your next lightning bolt or chain lightning would cast a second time for a bit more damage. Now it only affects chain lightning and now increases its damage by 20%. So I believe what it's trying to say is it will cast Chain Lightning a second time, but it's only going to be buffed by 20%. So it's more focused on AoE. So kind of an interesting change, but you know, weird. Tempest damage reduced by 8%. I don't even know why they bother putting that in there because I don't think they should be bothering with any form of damage output changes because this should just be all about gameplay. But anyways, on to Totemic. This one has had a big, massive change. So let's get into this. So new hero talent, Totemic Momentum. Each Maelstrom weapon spent increases the duration of hot hands by 0.2 seconds. So This is interesting, mainly because they changed the way Hot Hands reacts. So Hot Hands can no longer overlap itself, which we'll get into later. So this is actually a pretty interesting change. It's making it so Maelstrom is much more desired rather than just smashing Lavalash all the time. You want to actually cast your Maelstrom. I actually like this idea. It's making it feel more similar to Stormbringer in a sense and keeping them together. So now we also have Surge Catalyst casting. After casting Surging Totem, your next Lavalash casts again at 150% effectiveness. So this is basically just our 2 set. Or is it our 4 set? I think it's our Totemic 4 set currently. They're just adding it into the talents, and then Elemental Attunement Mastery increased by 2%. It's kind of weird. Um, okay. Lively Totems has been updated. Lavalash and Voltic Blaze cause your Searing Totems to shoot out a Searing Volley. Now, I am interested as to why Chain Lightning or Crash Lightning aren't there, because I would think that would be a bit more impactful maybe, but it looks like they really want Lavalash to be part of a AoE rotation. But I'm not sure. I think it would be cool to see Chain Lightning there to add a bit of Maelstrom, but it is what it is. Still an okay change, adding Voltic Blaze into that scenario. So Whirling Elements has been updated. Earth now causes your next Sundering to deal 100% increased damage and summons a Searing Totem. So I like this. I believe the current version of it is oh man, I forgot it. I forgot it. That's not good. I think it's Flame Shock spreads to 5 targets and deals increased damage. And now they swapped it to Sunder does more damage, which I think is really, really good. So then we go into Fire. Lavalash grants you Hot Hands for 8 seconds, was 6 seconds. Fire Nova no longer grants Hot Hands. Fire Nova no longer granting Hot Hands is good because they have made an adjustment. But yeah, it's basically the same, just a bit longer. And then we have Surging Totem. Cooldown is increased to 65 seconds. There's nothing. It's it's more of a big cooldown now. Um, which I think is good. 65 seconds, though, that's a really weird time. I don't know why they didn't just do 60 seconds or, a minute 30. They did 65. I don't really understand that. But I think it will benefit the playstyle of Totemic much better. So that way you're not having to keep Surging Totem up every time it falls off. You have some breather room without the totem, but it also might make it feel a bit awkward. I'm not sure. Then we got reactivity. Now cast Sundering at 80% effectiveness, was 50%. So that's whenever you have hot hands, your Lavalash instantly cast the Sunder, and it will create an Earth Surge, which now causes a tremor at 125% effectiveness, was 100%. And then they just buffed the totem by a significant margin. I think this is overall good for Totemic. Making it a longer cooldown is definitely much nicer, making you feel less reliant on the totem itself, and making the totem windows feel pretty impactful. But at the same time, it's definitely still another button, but it comes down to all the pruning that happens later on. So onto our class tree specifically. So Encasing Cold has been redesigned. If you remember this was like the increased slow for Frost Shock. Now increases the cooldown of Frost Shock by 15 seconds and causes Frost Shock to freeze the target in place for 4 seconds. So PvPers, this is a massive change and something that I've been hoping for it to come back for a long time, and I am excited to see it. Now, Frost Shock gaining a 15-second cooldown does feel pretty bad, considering the fact that we don't really have any other slow outside of that. So I'm not too sure on all of that situation. But I think overall, I do like this talent. I do like it giving us a 15-second cooldown route. It's quite nice. And then we go on to Seasoned Winds. If you remember this, basically whenever you interrupted, you would get, I think, 15% reduction to that spell school. They're basically changing it so now you just take 15% less spell damage in general for 12 seconds. So this is a much much better and more powerful design of this. It no longer stacks, yes, but it's more effective and you can interrupt whatever the heck you want rather than focusing on specific spells such as Shadow Bolt or something. So I really, really do like this. Now we have static charge. Now reduces the cooldown of capacitor totem by 15 seconds flat rather than having it reduced per target hit. So this is really good. Rather than it's better in smaller groups, and it's a bit weaker in bigger groups. But overall, I think it's a good change. It's just a little bit of utility. Each specialization now learns one spell instead of two, which we'll get into later because I do have the talent trees up here, but they don't have any images, but we'll still take a look at them. So Earth Elemental, this is a pretty big one that I do kind of like, but I think it's a bit of a nerf to it. Earth Elemental now lasts 30 seconds and has a 3-minute cooldown down from 5. So the reason why is the duration was cut in half, but the cooldown was cut only by 2 minutes rather than 2 minutes 30 seconds. So it's a small nerf, but it's a bit more manageable now, and I do kind of like it. Having Earth Elemental on a shorter cooldown is kind of nice. Then we have Totem Surge. This was basically just a totem cooldown reduction. So Totem Surge reduces the cooldown of totems by 5 seconds, was 6. Not much of a difference. And then Chain Heal cast time reduced. That's not really us. This is a big one here. Poison Cleansing Totem is now a choice node against Tremor Totem. This is really weird, mainly for PvP specific and possibly dungeons, depending on how they are laid out. The reason why is because both Tremor and Poison Cleanse have seen some good uses for PvP and PvE, but now that they're against each other, it really does feel like a heavy nerf. But again, they are trying to reduce the amount of spells that we can use to deal with it. So I feel like if you're fighting, for instance, in PvP, if you're fighting Assassination Rogue Warlock, you have to now determine, is it more worth it to go with Tremor Totem or is it more worth it to go with Poison Cleansing? But again, it comes down to it. So several talents have changed positions in the tree, which is true. Arctic Snowstorm has been removed. Call of the Elements has been removed. Creation Core has been removed. Frost Shock has been removed. I believe Frost Shock is now baseline, but it hasn't said anything. I'm just taking a estimated guess there. Guardian's Cudgel, I don't even know how to say that, removed. Lightning Lasso, removed. Makes sense because nobody used it in PvE. Stone Bulwark Totem, removed. So this one is a bit weird. I'm not gonna lie. I think they reduced everybody's defensive qualities down, so Stone Bulwark being removed is quite a big one. But I didn't find it as effective as Ancestral Wall or whatever. I don't even remember what it's called. But right now, we did get a bit compensated as enhancement specifically later on, so it is what it is. Thunderstorm now learned by Elemental at 30, so we can't get Thunderstorm anymore, I believe. So that's a little bit tough. And then Totemic Recall, which is the reset your latest used totem, has been removed as well. So now there is nothing stated that things have been baseline, but I'm assuming Frost Shock has been become baseline because of the change to encasing cold. But I guess we'll find out later once it hits. So on to the enhancement specific changes. So going into midnight, we are aiming to reduce the amount of information to track for playing Enhancement Shaman optimally. To achieve this goal, we are looking into reducing the number of buttons or spell highlights to track while heavily keeping in mind how it feels to play Enhancement Shaman. In addition to the core enhancement shaman changes, we are aiming to reduce the overhead of understanding two different hero talent rotations. The hero talents have affected the rotation a bit more than we would like, and we're making adjustments to allow the hero talents to fit into enhancement's core rotation more naturally while preserving what is unique about them. So, this is just them trying to make both hero talents feel similar while having different I don't know, fantasy, I guess. I'm not really sure, but I think so far they have done pretty good. So into the Apex talents, and these are the new talents coming into Midnight. The final 3 or whatever. So each Maelstrom weapon spent has a 2% chance to cause your next Crash Lightning to ignore its cooldown. The weapon enhancement effect of Crash Lightning may now overlap. So this is interesting and really weird. Basically, Crash Lightning is going to play a much bigger part in our AoE scenarios, I believe. And the fact that they're going to allow it to overlap really does show that they want it as a core AoE effect, where right now it's just used as a generator rather than an actual damage effect. So I think this is a really cool idea, but it could get out of hand pretty quick. But we'll see what happens. Maelstrom weapons spending abilities deal 8 to 15% increased damage. Weapon imbuements deal 10 to 20% increased damage. So this is just a flat buff. The weapon imbuements deal increased damage is pretty cool. The Maelstrom spending abilities is kind of meh, but it is what it is. Then we got another one here. We got Crash Lightning electrocutes the area struck, dealing 50% of its damage to addition 2 additional times over 2 seconds. And its weapon enhancement effect now increases auto attack speed by 15%. So this is kind of interesting. This reminds me of an old talent where I think it was back in BFA was the last time we would have saw it, where you crash lightning and you electrify the ground. I think this is that same idea. The fact that they're adding in a bit of an attack speed buff is kind of cool, but it doesn't really state that auto attacks are going to be affected by the crash lightning thing. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But I think overall it's a pretty cool idea. Now on to the actual talent. So a new talent called Overcharge. Critical strike damage of nature spells, or nature abilities, sorry, increased by 40% of your critical strike chance. So this is interesting because this means our critical strike could become more powerful depending on what they have done with our mastery in the future. But I think it's quite interesting to see because we haven't really been focused on critical chance at all. We've just been haste mastery and that's it. So we might be seeing some haste crit builds when you're with Stormbringer and maybe haste mastery when you're Totemic. That would feel kind of bad, but at the same time, at least they're trying something. And then we got new talent Stormbind. This is more for a bit of PvP, I guess. Critical strikes of nature abilities reduce the target's movement speed by 60 seconds for 5 seconds. This is pretty interesting in terms of PvP. Now, we are going to be doing a significant amount of nature damage, but at the same time, the fact that we're relying on a critical strike to reduce the movement speed is kind of weird. I'm not going to lie. So it's definitely not up there, but it's something, I guess. I'd like to just see nature spells or maybe like lightning bolt specific or something like that rather than critical strikes, but it is what it is. Now onto a fan favorite. We got the new talent Ride the Lightning for you PvPers that remember this. This is crazy. This is crazy. Um, so Storm Strike and Lava Lash unleash your chain lightning at 100% effectiveness that deals 20% reduced damage with each jump. So both Lava Lash and Storm Strike are now going to cause you to chain lightning for free. And yeah, I think that's pretty crazy. I did not think I would ever see this talent in a PvE side of things, but here it is. Here it is. So I'm quite excited to see how this works out in almost any scenario. Um, then we got another new one called Elemental Tempo. This one is really interesting. So elemental damage increased by 10%. Each Maelstrom weapon stack consumed reduces Storm Strike and Lava Lash cooldown by 0.3 seconds. So a total of 3 seconds if you cast at 10 stacks. So this makes me think that they're going to redo our mastery, which I don't think has been stated yet. But basically, I think Storm Surge is getting taken away, so we'll no longer have Storm Strike resets. And yeah, it's their way to fit in something else. So I think it's cool. I think it's a much healthier design, making Maelstrom a bit more impactful aside from its damage, and making Storm Strike and Lava Lash maybe more the focal point of Enhancement, which I think is a good design. So on to the next one, Lightning Strikes. Consuming 10 stacks of Maelstrom weapon increases the next Storm Strike or Lava Lash by 25% and causes them to generate a Maelstrom weapon stack. So again, they're really emphasizing on the combo of casting your Maelstrom weapon into a Storm Strike or Lava Lash. Again, I think this is a great design. It really does feed into more of what Enhancement's all about, with being both ranged and melee at the same time. So I really do like the way they're going with these things, emphasizing Storm Strike and Lava Lash, and keeping Maelstrom very important as well, but keeping more of the focal point, I think, of Enhancement on Storm Strike and Lava Lash is very important. So on to the next one, we have Thunder Capacitor. Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning deal 20% increased damage and have a 20% chance to refund Maelstrom weapons. So this is just one of our previous talents from, I think, the Ascendance side, where Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning have a chance to refund all their Maelstrom weapon. So I think it's good, but I don't know. We're keeping it, so it's not much of a difference. I just think it's in a different spot now, is what I'm assuming. So on to the next one, we have new talent, Chaining Storms. Chain Lightning now jumps to 2 additional targets and deals 10% increased damage. If you remember this, it's very similar to the previous one, Crashing Storms, I think. Um, Basically, they removed the extra increase to Crash Lightning and just put it straight into Chain Lightning. So, not much of a difference, just losing the extra benefit to Crash Lightning. So, on to the next one, we have Forceful Winds has been updated. Wind Fury has a 10% additional chance to trigger, and its damage is increased by 50%. So this is a much better design than what we had before. Before it was Wind Fury has an increased proc chance, and then you gained 10% damage, but it could stack up 5 times without refreshing itself. So this gives it a much better damage profile, making it much easier to balance and view of how your Wind Fury is doing. So I really do like this. I wasn't really a fan of Forceful Winds before, but I think this version is significantly better. So Maelstrom Weapon has been updated. Melee damage has a chance to generate Maelstrom Weapon, stacking up 5 times. Each stack reduces the cast time of Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning and increases their damage by 20%. So this is really good. They're making it so we no longer need a talent to make them do increased damage. They're just making it flatline. So they just removed the talent essentially. So Raging Maelstrom has been updated. Maelstrom weapon can stack an additional 5 times. Then we have Overflow, which just causes them to be able to consume 10 Maelstrom stacks. So same thing. These two are the exact same. I'm not really sure why they said updated, but oh well. But onto Crash Lightning has been updated. So electrocutes enemies in front of you, enhances weapons for 12 seconds, causing Storm Strike and Lava Lash to discharge nature damage split up to 5 enemies. So kind of interesting. I think the current design of Crash Lightning, it hits all enemies in front of you, but now it only hits up to 5. So it is what it is. And now onto a massive change, which is Voltic Blaze. I really like this. Replaces Flame Shock. Instantly shocks target and 5 nearby enemies, applies Flame Shock, generates 1 Maelstrom weapon, and always critically strikes with a 10-second cooldown. So this makes Voltic Blaze more of a filler ability, or actually a button to press during things. And then if you combo that with our new talents, the Overcharge, I think it would go really, really good. So I am very, very excited to see how this works out and what else it does. It also gives us the option to flame shock everybody without having to lava lash. So kind of nice, I'm not going to lie. So I'm excited for that. And to have it a 10-second cooldown so you don't have to spam it is quite nice. And then we go on to Surging Elements. So Surging Elements has been updated. Sundering grants 15% haste for 12 seconds and generates 5 Maelstrom weapon stacks. So Sundering is now replacing Primordial Wave, which I think a lot of people will be happy about. And it's becoming the big cooldown. So I am excited for that, and it looks pretty good. And then we have Primordial Storm has been updated. Sundering transforms into a single-use Primordial Storm for 15 seconds after the cast. So it's just saying that it's doing the same thing, it's just now it's tied into Sundering. So it's quite nice. Sundering has been updated, no longer incapacitates, and cooldown reduced to 30 seconds baseline. So we used to have to take a talent that would cause it to not incap and also reduces cooldown. Now it's just going to do that flat, so you don't have to worry about it. So now on to Feral Spirits. This is one of the biggest changes is Sundering now summons a Fire Feral Spirit and Doomwind summons a Nature Feral Spirit. Feral Spirits grant 5% increased fire or nature damage and physical damage for 8 seconds. I think it depends on which one, but I think this is a much better design, but I don't see Feral Spirits being all that impactful, but we'll have to see. It's definitely an interesting way to bring Feral Spirits back into the game. Well, not necessarily back, I guess, but keep them in the game, I guess, without having them on a cooldown. So, uh, it's kind of weird. We'll have to see how it plays out. I feel like they're going to have to really increase the passive damage they do themselves rather than the extra bonus we get, but it'll be interesting to see. And now we have Ascendance ability has been updated. So replaces Doomwind. So this is a big one. Replaces Doomwind. Transform into an Air Ascendant for 15 seconds. Unleashes Doomwind. So as soon as you cast Ascendance, you're going to unleash a Doomwind at the same time. Reduces Storm Strike cooldown and cost by 60%. I'm not quite sure why it says cost there, but we'll find out later, I guess. Kind of weird. Transforms auto attacks and Storm Strike into wind attacks that bypass armor and have a 30-yard range. Maelstrom Spenders have a 0.5% chance to unleash Doomwinds while Ascendance is inactive. So basically, it's giving us a mega cooldown where we're guaranteed to Doomwinds. And then outside of that, we have a chance to randomly proc Doomwinds up to a 5% chance to proc it. So overall, I like this change. The fact that we only have one cooldown now, we don't have to Doomwinds, Ascendance, Feral Spirits, blah, 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 blah. It's nice that we just press the button and off it goes. The fact that Doomwinds is now RNG outside of Ascendance is kind of weird, but you know what? I think I'm okay with it. I think I'm okay with it. I think I will take it. But yeah, so overall, I think it's okay. But onto deeply rooted elements. This one I don't quite understand. Replaces Doomwinds. Each Maelstrom weapon stack consumed has a 0.6% chance to activate Ascendance for 8 seconds. So the reason why I don't understand it is I don't know if this part of it, where it has a chance to unleash a Doomwinds outside of Ascendance, is still part of deeply rooted elements or what. So it's hard to say, and it does really get awkward. But maybe it does. I'm not sure. So if it doesn't, then I feel like there's no point in deeply rooted elements. But again, it does come down to numbers and playstyle as well. So we'll have to see how it all plays out. But overall, I do like the Ascendance change. I think it's really, really cool. Onto Ashen Catalyst. This was based around Lavalash. So when Lavalash strikes a target affected by Flame Shock, its cooldown is reduced by 2 seconds. So before Ashen Catalyst was every time Flame Shock did damage, it would generate a stack increasing the damage of your next Lavalash by whatever and reducing its cooldown by 0.5 seconds or whatever. So I like this design much better. It's better for single target and it keeps it the same for AoE without it getting crazy. So I think it is better, but it's definitely going to be a weird feeling. So on to Fire Nova. I'm not a big fan of this. I think this is a loss for Fire Nova, but we'll see. Baltic Blaze now generates 2 additional Maelstrom weapons, so it goes from 1 to 3 Maelstrom weapon, and has a 30% chance to cause a Fire Nova, erupting fire damage from flame shock targets to up to 6 enemies within 8 yards. I'm not a really big fan of the has a chance to Fire Nova. Like that seems kind of silly to me. Um, I wish they would just make it so Voltic Blaze now causes a Fire Nova as well, but it deals a lot less damage. You know, I think that would be much better. I don't like this 30% chance to cause a fire nova. I think it's ridiculous, but at least they're keeping fire nova in somewhat, I guess. Anyways, on to the next one, we got Thorm's Invocation. Secondary effect has been updated. During Ascendance or Doom Winds, Storm Strike and Crash Lightning consume up to 10 Maelstrom Weapon to discharge Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning at 100% effectiveness. If available, discharges Tempest instead. So basically, what they're saying is Doom Winds, if you don't have Ascendance, Doom Winds will now trigger this effect. So the way I think it's worded is Storm Strike is going to trigger lightning bolts, and then Crash Lightning is going to trigger chain lightnings. So I do think that's how it is based. Also, it can consume up to 10. So it means it's going to cast a full powered lightning bolt or chain lightning. So I think it's going to be a little bit different than what we're used to. So we'll see how that plays out. I think it's definitely going to be interesting, and it's going to make Crash Lightning a bit more desirable during Ascendance than it was before. So I think overall it's a pretty good change and pretty healthy, but we'll see what happens. So on to the next one, we got Raging Maelstrom now has an additional effect. Consuming Maelstrom weapon causes your next healing surge or chain heal to gain 100% of the benefits of Maelstrom weapon based on stacks consumed. So if you are a PvPer, you probably recognize this from the PvP talent Stormweaver. So basically they're just building it into the 10 stack Maelstrom thing or whatever. So we get this for free with our Maelstrom talent. So it's kind of replacing Stone Bulwark, but at the same time, not really, but giving us a bit more of a healing output, almost like we have Ancestral Guidance again. So we don't have to spend Maelstrom on a heal. We get it after spending Maelstrom in general. So I really, really like this. This is a great change. So Hot Hands may no longer trigger from melee auto attacks during an active Hot Hand. So you can't get a Hot Hands proc during Hot Hands, but you can trigger it using your totem effect, is the what I'm getting from it. So Hot Hands duration reduced to 8 seconds was 10, and now reduces the cooldown of Lavlash by 25 to 50%. It sounds like it's not increasing its damage anymore, which I think is kind of interesting. It's just lowering the cooldown. Uh, I'm not sure how I feel about this, but at the same time, I think they're gonna buff Lavlash to make it more impactful overall. So that way it doesn't feel bad to use that new talent. Like right now with the tier set, you get that extra 150% Lavlash. You're gonna actually want to cast it in general rather than wait for your next Hot Hands proc. So I think it's a really good idea, especially with that talent being introduced to the talent tree. And then next we got Crash Lightning damage increased by 40%, Cleave effect damage increased by 130 for 130%, and cooldown increased to 15 seconds was 12 seconds. So this is kind of interesting. I believe the cleave effect is the secondary targets or possibly the weapon enhancement. I'm not really sure, but they're really making Crash Lightning a button that we want to press, which I am excited to see. So Storm's Invocation now additionally increases Doomwind's duration by 2 seconds, no longer increases Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning's damage by 20%. So currently, it increases lightning bolt and chain lightning, and it also grants 60% or 60 seconds off of your ascendance cooldown and adds an additional 2 seconds to your deeply rooted elements duration. So rather than keeping the damage, they're just making it so it actually affects Doom Winds again, or Doom Winds now. So making Doom Winds a bit more of a cooldown, like Ascendance is. So static accumulation no longer grants 20% chance on Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning to refund Maelstrom weapon. So it sounds like they modified it. I'm not really sure. I don't know what else. Oh, I think static accumulation is when you're in Ascendance or Doomwinds, for instance, you generate Maelstrom. So I think that's the only thing left of static accumulation. So Storm Flurry now has a 20% chance and correctly multiplies damage of subsequent storm strikes and their added effects like Crash Lightning Cleave. So currently, if you get a Storm Flurry proc, you could get a bajillion procs, for instance, but it won't trigger like Wind Fury. It won't trigger Flame Tongue. It might not even trigger Tempest sometime, or not Tempest. Tempest Strikes, for instance, sometimes. So it's really really weird. So now it's actually going to do that properly, apparently. So we'll see how that goes. And then improved Maelstrom has been integrated into Maelstrom weapon and removed from the talent tree. Many talents have had their stuff changed. So talents removed are Alpha Wolf, Crashing Storms, Elemental Blast, Elemental Spirits, Flowing Spirits, Hailstorm, Ice Strike, Improved Maelstrom, Legacy of the Frost Witch, Molten Thunder, Primordial Wave, Tempest Strikes, Unrelenting Storms, and Witch Doctor's Ancestry. So the few ones that haven't technically been removed are Molten Thunder, which was made baseline into our Sunder, Unrelenting Storms, which has joined the Stormbringer talent tree, and Crashing Storms has been revamped into Crashing Chains or whatever. So, and Feral Spirits has all been made passive. Primordial Wave is the only thing that's been removed fully, and then Legacy of Frost, which was revamped into that cooldown reduction. So let's go check out the talent tree. So like I said, we have no actual view of the images, but we can hover over and see. So at the top here, we have Chain Lightning, and then we have Lava Lash for enhancement specifically, or Lava Burst. So which is kind of nice. So we're no longer going to have to deal with Lava Burst. And then we got Chain Heal over here. We got Earth Shield, which is going to be nice. Ancestry. So this allows us to cast our stuff during Wolf, which we already have. All fire damage and stuff increase. Spirit Wolf and Thunderous Paws. Frost Shock. I know it said it removed it, but it didn't. So I don't really understand why they said they removed it, but I don't know. So I thought it was going to be baseline, but I guess not. Then we have Elemental Orbit. So this is when we could have two shields on us, so both Lightning and Earth Shield, or for Resto Shamans, Water Shield and Earth Shield. Then we got Spirit Walk and Gust of Wind way up here, which is what I like. We get our utility very, very nice. And then we have Ancestral Shift, which is kind of weird that it's down here, but you know, it is what it is, I guess. And then we have Nature's Guardian, which is going to be nice. Encasing Cold, and then Arctic Snow, same things. Nothing's changed there. Healing Stream Totem if we want it. Then we got Wrath of Valkyr. So this is the Ghost Wolf increase, and then if we have a bunch of totems out, we get even more movement speed. And then this is our buff to our Astral Shift, so not much has changed there. Bringing with life, same thing. We get Wind Shear over here, which is, again, I don't see why this is on the class tree, but whatever. Elemental Resistance, we have that previously. It's just tied into Healing Stream. Then we have Nature's Fury, which is the critical chance increase. And then we got Capacitor Totem. We got Purge or Greater Purge, which you have to take Brimming with Life, which that, huh? That's so weird. I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't want Brimming with Life, but still, I find that ridiculous. But okay. Enhanced Imbues, Wind Veil. So this is the spell school, whatever interrupt. And then we got Refreshing Waters, which causes Healing Surge to do more. We got Cleanse Spirit, so that's the Curse Dispel, Static Charge, Wind Rush Totem, Earth Elemental, and then we got Elemental Warding, so we take less damage. Earth Grab, we got Ascending Air, so that's our Wind Rush buff right there. We got Primordial Bond while Elemental is out. You get 5% damage reduction. Then we got Hex in a final tier. I don't know about that one. That's weird. That's definitely weird. Spirit Walker's Grace, cool. We don't know. Totemic Projection, Totemic Focus. So we've had that before. We got Grace, so that's just a Spirit Walker's buff. We got Mana Spring. We had that before. Totem Surge, reduced cooldowns. Yep. Tremor and Poison Cleanse. Okay. Voodoo Mastery down here. I don't understand why these are in the final tiers, but whatever. Then our apexes are nature's swiftness. We got the coming soon, great, and coming soon. Okay, so uh, yeah, we don't really know a lot. Great. I'm not a big fan of this, but maybe we'll have something where we can spend Maelstrom to cast Hex. I don't know, but we'll see what happens. Anyways, on to Stormbringer. So Tempest, yeah. So I think nothing has really changed here. Everything is roughly the same other than the changes. So Stormbringer doesn't matter. Same with Totemic. I believe they're all the same and stuff that we changed. So on to the actual changes. So first up, we got our Maelstrom weapon. And then we branch off into Wind Fury weapon and Flame Tongue weapon. So this makes it seem like Enhancement is going to be the only one with weapon imbuements. I assume aside from Restoration's Shaman with their Earth Living, but kind of cool, but kind of weird at the same time. And then we got the typical Forceful Winds here. Then we got Crash Lightning way up here, which is kind of nice. You get your Cleave very early. Then you get Molten Assault. Still doing the same thing it did before. Then we got Unruly Winds, same thing. Raging Maelstrom, so yep, same thing. Ashen Cat, oh, excuse me, sorry. Ashen Catalyst, same thing. Stormblast is definitely up. This is where Doom Winds used to be, so that's kind of nice. Overcharge, so this is the new critical damage increase to our nature spell, so it's quite up here. So I think that's pretty okay spot, I'd say. Overflowing, same spot. Flurry, same spot. And then Hot Hand, same spot. Then we got Storm's Wrath. So same thing as it was before, buffing our mastery. I have a feeling that's going to change based on the way certain things have been. Elemental Tempo is right here, dead center. So you can connect it with Overcharge, Flurry, or Overflowing Maelstrom. So interesting, I guess. So it's kind of nice that Raging Maelstrom branches off into Flurry, so you don't have to get Ashen Catalyst. So I kind of like that. And then we go over here to Voltic Blaze, which is just a full button, which is very nice to see. So I'm excited. It's definitely in the Lavalash side, which makes more sense. But since it's connected to Flurry, we can definitely grab it as a Storm Strike Shaman. So kind of nice to see that it's still optional. And then we go on to the next one. We have Chaining Storm. So this is a Chain Lightning buff. Converging Storms. So they still have this, which is surprising. And it's in a very weird spot. I'm not going to lie. But this is whenever you Crash Lightning, your next Storm Strike is buffed. So, and then we got Storm Flurry way over here, which it was, I believe, right here. So much nicer spot, especially for Storm Strike Shaman, rather than being over in the Lavalash side. So I really agree with that. And then we got Stormbind. I figured Stormbind would be right here, emphasizing more on Overcharge. It's very close to the bottom, which really confuses me. But the fact that you have to take elemental tempo is really weird, but you're not forced into it, which is really nice. So you don't have to worry about it for PvE. So elemental weapons, it was over here, now it's over here. Not really much of a difference in my opinion. Fire Nova, so that's Voltic Blaze, makes sense. Lashing Flames, still the same spot as it was before. And then Ride the Lightning was on the left hand side where the Primordial Wave used to be. And then we got Lightning Strikes in with it. So, and then into Thunder Capacitor. So these three are connected. Kind of makes sense. And then we got Doom Winds, which is our big cooldown now. So that's going to be connected to Elemental Assault, which is what previously was 2-stack talent is now a 1-stack. Also into Ecstatic Accumulation. So during Doomwind or Ascendance, you generate Maelstrom over time, which is good to see. And then you get Feral Spirits as well, which makes sense considering the fact that it's now based off of whenever you Doomwinds or Sunder. And then Sundering is all the way over here in place of Primordial Wave. And then we go down and we get Surging Elements and Primordial Storm. So makes sense. I think everybody kind of expected that. And then onto the final ones, we have Ascendance and Deeply Rooted Elements on the same tier, which I think is still the same as what it was before. And then we got Thorm's Invocation over to the right. So you don't have to take Ascendance anymore. You can just jump into Static Accumulation and jump over to Thorm's Invocation. Um, I think what we're going to see a lot is if you're playing Stormstrike for Mythic Plus specifically, maybe even single target, is you're going to take all of these, depending on how many we have access to, and you'll probably jump into Ride the Lightning in an Elemental Assault and see how far you can go down over here. Not sure. And then over here we have our Apex talents, which is Storm Unleashed, Storm Unleashed 2, and Storm Unleashed even more, apparently. So I can't really see all the images, but we'll hopefully see it at some point. Again, I don't have any gameplay, unfortunately, but overall, from what I am seeing, I think we are going into a pretty decent version of enhancement and a much healthier version as well. It's going to be much easier for people to pick up, as well as much better for players to play, I guess. There are still a few talents I don't agree with Fire Nova being one of them. Deep Rooted Elements, still unsure about what's happening with it. Um, and the whole Tempest change, I'm not a big fan of. But other than that, I think we're looking pretty good. Um, I think our gameplay is going to be much easier. It's going to be more around Stormstrike and Lavalash and Crash Lightning, which is kind of exciting. So I can't wait to get to test this. But whenever beta happens, or if I ever get an alpha key, you will know that day because I will be so excited to try it out. But anyways, guys, that's all I got for now. Please let me know your thoughts about the new Enhancement Shaman changes. I think overall they are positive, but they definitely have some negatives as well, which is to be expected. But I would say we're looking at a benefit over a loss. But anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Let us.